All good. Okay. Okay, it's on now. I'm just gonna mute this one. Okay. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube for the first live with Jochen Schleese in a while. We haven't done this in a couple of months now, so this is gonna be a shorter one because I did an oopsie and accidentally locked the account that I needed to sign in to set this up. So we're starting half an hour late, but better late than never. And I'm not gonna take much time introducing both of us because I already wasted half of the live. So, anyways, Jochen, thank you for coming again. You always have a lot of good things to share and teach us lots of stuff. So I really appreciate it.
Yes, I'm glad to do this with you. As I always say, I love doing this with you because your experience and my experience together, this interaction can help many horses and of course riders as well. And we always saying this same old saying, I know what I know what I don't know, but I didn't know that, even though it's very obvious. And that's how we as humans go through life. And sometimes I can say, well, ignorance is bliss. Well, not really, if unintentionally I'm hurting my horse long term. So those things you and I do, making people aware, I didn't know what I didn't know, gets very often greatly appreciated, don't you think?
Oh yeah, and I think like normalizing the conversation that people don't like they'll make mistakes without the purpose of like trying to harm their horse or anyone else, but it might have that effect. And it takes away like the shame of like changing, because it's better to change and acknowledge you did something wrong than it is to just not ever know and to keep doing it.
I think what that's probably the hardest time for us and as a saddle ergonomist, when we go out and we show them and how the saddle should fit them and should fit the horse, not on our opinion or somebody's philosophy, just based on simple scientific facts and anatomy and physiology for both, the horse and the human. And when the customer understands, we make it as simple as possible with pictures, with them feeling it. Then comes the guilt trip, right? And that's the hard part. We need to pep them up and says, hey, we know you didn't do this purposely. You just didn't know you didn't know. And then they get super angry with themselves, or they feel very, very sorry for their horse because they feel they let the horse down, and most likely they been led in wrong directions by the stupid economic greed of making money. And I saw it on your post yesterday. How I love that saying, what you said with the, we don't make food to feed us. We make food to make money
Profit.
Of it.
Yeah.
Right. And unfortunately, in the saddle industry, it's the same thing. Sometimes it just, it's good enough. It's never good enough. And I think you bring it beautiful across, in your presentations or posts. You do it for the horse, and we all say we do it for the horse. But when a customer gets taken, pretend it's for the horse, but it was for money-making purposes, then they should get super upset. And this is not your attention, my attention here. We're just trying to share. I grew up with horses all my life, and I made this my mission to educate because I was taken. Even sponsored, I felt I was taken. And you are such a spokesperson for the horse, and that's why I love working with you. So I think people know that from us, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. And it's so good because the more you talk and like talk about mistakes that you've made in your past, and then myself too doing the same, it helps other people kind of come to terms with it in themselves and not like either beat themselves up as much or just like ignore it and pretend that there's no problem. And I like it because I'm seeing it more and more. Like the more time goes on, there's more people that are more comfortable to kind of like admitting that they had done something wrong and kind of changing. And then there's the standards are slowly raising.
Mm.
And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, you know what? I just got reminded of the game hide and seek. So one person has to find the other person, right? So the rest hides. So it's always one person who got to go through the scary house or the woods, wherever you play hide and seek, who is the brave one to find the other one. The majority hides. And this is also in us as humans. It is cognitive dissonance where I just pretend I don't know, or I hide to know the truth because I'm afraid to learn. So only the brave people come forward and says, I want to learn. I want to find, not just hide and seek the people who hide, but I want to find out why my horse, when I mount from the ground, turns around and bites me in the butt, or flicks the ears back, and then for the next 10 minutes, I have a really pissy horse, or why I need to mount from the horse and why it's so important to mount from the horse. So very few people really have the interest to find out the why. And you heard me saying 100 times, the person who knows the how will always furls the person who knows the why.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And yeah, and then there's just ignorance too, because I've had so many people that haven't even considered the damage. Like, and I used to mount from the ground a lot when I was like growing up riding it. It never even crossed my mind that it could be a problem for like the health of the horse, but also like the saddle and everything else. It was just not something you considered because no one ever brought it up. And then you never even know that there's like other options out there to learn and you don't know where to find the information. So it's so much now you make it so accessible through all of the stuff that you post and like these discussions and stuff. And that's so helpful because some people have just like they've never even considered the fact that something that they do all the time and have normalized could be not the best.
Yeah. People don't like to change. You know who likes to change? A wet baby. Mom, change my diaper. But in general, people do not like to change.
They like to stay where they're comfortable.
Right. So I think when you are so passionate about the animals and you're so passionate about teaching or training, or in my case, we talk about saddles, so I give always the customers the most benefit of the doubt, because in my heart, I believe the majority of people truly do this not because of making money with the horse, because they love to be with the horse and help the horse and get psychology. They get so simmered down from all the stress we have these days. If it's mental stress because I'm locked up due to COVID, or is it because I have stress and work? I go to the barn, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Because of the horse. So now, why in the world would I hurt him? Right? So deep down, I think most people love the horses and they don't want to hurt them, but they don't want to change.
Yeah, they don't want to uproot what they've grown comfortable and like. Yeah.
So how do we change it? Stories, like what we do, emotions, or feel. So when it comes to saddle fit, and let's say there's 5 saddle fitters, and everybody tries to get this one customer to get their saddle adjusted or get a different saddle, who do you think get the customer convinced that they should go with the saddle? It's not the cheapest saddle, not the most expensive or fashion. It's what resonates with the customer, what is emotional, where the customer could feel, because only if the customer can feel is when the customer understands. So let's talk about today's topic, mounting from the ground. I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever done a funky move or a turn in your body and it felt weird, and then a couple hours later you couldn't move?
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit what that was?
I used to have like bad knee problems, and like so like walking sometimes that you kind of just like your knee would give out, and then like later that day could wake up in excruciating pain if I like stretched my knee because I'll like hyperextend it. And yeah, not a good time.
So even though that was not an hour ago or yesterday was maybe a while ago,
Mm-hmm.
your brain resonates back to that, right?
Yeah.
And you're saying, that hurt. Now imagine you mount from the ground. And imagine the longer spinal processes. I have one of those here. I have to check where I put it. That long bone, right? So if you look at this long bone, that's at the withers. Okay, and here where my fingers are is a nerve channel. Now you mount on, and when you go like,
Oh yeah.
right, and pull that over, okay, the horse can stand one or the other jerky move. But if you do this regular, or he does it a little bit out, like you did with your knee, now ligaments and muscles hold it so your knee, in your case, hyperextend, does not hyperextend.
Yeah.
If it does, it hurts like crazy, right?
Yeah. Oh, it
So
sucks.
imagine I would tell you, suck it up, don't be such a baby. And I give you a whip and I spur you with my spur.
Yeah.
When I jump on your back and you piggyback me now with your knee.
And do hard exercise. Yeah.
Right, right. So just because I don't understand what you go through, right? Why would I jump from the side onto your body that, let's say your left knee is the bad one? Okay. Why would I do that on the left side and you now all of a sudden have this issue with your knee? You as the human can say, no, Jochen, you're not jumping on my back and I'm not taking your back because it hurts. And if I don't see the sign of the horse, what is hurting? Biting, ears back, teeth, tail swish, getting really grumpy. And now I ride, I said, oh yeah, today's Monday. Monday's always grumpy. We're making these stories up, which absolutely makes no difference to the animal. The animal doesn't live by the Mayan calendar. It doesn't live by the Jewish calendar. The animal lives by the sun rises, the sun falls. I'm hungry and I need to move.
Yeah.
So for me, it is so important that people understand when we mount from the ground, what happens to the horse. Like I said, the longest bone. Then you'd say, oh, I don't care because I'm borrowing a horse and I have my own saddle. You twist the saddle. And every saddle maker, every tack shop, anybody who wants to sell you a lot of saddle will say, oh, it's just a fashion. Of course you mount from the ground. Go ahead, go for it. That increases my possibility that you need very soon a new saddle because the saddle gets twisted. Right? If I am a student, a rider, or a person who don't have noodles and doodles of money for saddles, I don't want to wreck my most important interface, my connection piece between me and my horse, the saddle. Then I would listen, wait a minute, the saddle can actually get twisted and therefore cause it all kinds of problems. Maybe I want to hear what your opinion is. So I know I talked a lot around stories with your knees, make people feel, but I hope it resonates with some people when I say, how do bareback riders mount from the ground? I see you riding bareback. How do you do it?
I vault.
Aha. And that's exactly what we did in Germany as kids. We had to learn how to vault. And I was like 5 years old. And the first time I was allowed to walk behind a horse. There was no way my little hands could ever reach the vault.
Yeah. Oh,
Guess what? Guess what my coach did?
What?
He kind of walked like the horse beside it. And he says, jump. And he gave me that solution that I jumped to the handle and they said, now vault your legs over. By the time I grew up and I got a little taller, eventually I knew what the action was. Grab the handles, vault on the horse. But then I had to do it without that vaulting girth. Okay? So I had to find a way of where my hand just lays loose on the main comb, not dragging on the mane. Okay? So my hand lays there and I still had to vault. So in order to throw your upper body down, you need to learn some trust yourself or techniques.
Yeah.
So we as kids learned how to vault without jerking on the entire spine or neck to get up there. Now you've seen that probably in the old movies, you know, when you see an old movie with John Wayne or some old movies with nothing comes to mind right now, but you see people riding without anything, no bridles, nothing. And they just walk to the horse and they jump up.
Yeah.
Right? We
And
even
the
had,
jockeys, some of the jockeys are insane because they can get on these huge horses and they basically just like levitate onto them.
so how is
It's
that possible?
crazy.
It's a technique. Now, I'm not expecting this for the adult amateur rider who's starting to ride in the late 30s, maybe 40s or 50s, who never had a technique to learn how to do it. But then
Mm-hmm.
don't mount from the ground, mount from the mounting block. And here's a very good story. I don't know if it's in the post or not. It's when you in Germany used the mounting block, that was in the late 70s and the early 80s, you were considered a loser, because you can't mount a horse from the ground. So mounting block, it's now visible almost in every German riding barn. But before it was considered you're not a good rider if you can't get on the horse without the mounting block. Now that was considered if you don't use your stirrups. But most people use the stirrup. And then where do they hold on? On the cantle, jerk the cantle over, go on, everything starts twisting, and then the torque on the spine. So that is, in a nutshell, where I'd like to start the conversation and tell me a little bit your experience and what you feel as a trainer, rider. You already given one big pointer, those little jockeys on these massive horses. How is that possible?
Yeah, no, that's great. Like it takes so much practice because for me, vaulting, I started practicing when I was like 9. So I started on shorter horses. So I've gotten lots of practice and I even for mounting from the ground, like it takes a certain level of like flexibility to mount at a vault or even when you're just trying to get into the saddle if your horse is like above a certain size. So like mounting blocks are just easier for anyone that can't like physically vault on or isn't as flexible because you have to be pretty flexible to jerk your entire hip up from the ground on like an English saddle on a tall horse. And like I think you could injure yourself from doing that as well, like everything
Oh, yeah.
aside with damage to the horse or the saddle. And then it also stretches your stirrup leather too. It's just kind of like a pain. Like I save mounting from like the reason why at the barn I'll always vault on or always get a mounting block or get on from the fence or something like that or a step ladder, like literally anything that's elevated is because like if I fell off on a trail ride and you're in the middle of nowhere and the horse is tacked so you can't safely vault on, then you got to save your mounting from the ground for like those occasions where you have no other option or need to get on fast or like something like the emergency situations. Don't ruin your saddle or your horse's back for the everyday thing when you have so many other options.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I used to do mounting from the ground because I just never considered the fact that it could cause a problem. And now that I know, it's just like, nah, no thanks.
So I got two fun facts for you. Yeah. So that one fun fact is the following. People say, oh, it's just a fad because in the old days, there were no mounting block. This is just because it's an in thing. So let's back up and talk about the old days. In the old days, there was very controlled breeding. Not every mom and pop could own a horse. It was not in the cards because of industry, etc. Right? So there was controlled breeding and controlled riding, and it started way back in the cavalry. Okay, and then there was discipline. And when I say discipline, because it came out of the military or the cavalry, right? There were certain things you got to do, such as you got to be able to vault from the ground. If in the middle of the field you go on a hack, the horse falls down, and your iron is broken or your stirrup leather broke off, and there's no iron, and there is no mounting block, nothing, you got to be able to get on your horse. Otherwise, you'll lead your horse back. So the myth or the fun fact is it's not a fad. It's because we have, like you already addressed, it's dangerous if you haven't learned it from a child on. Okay. So
Yeah.
what has the industry done? Number one says, hey, we recognize that we have a lot of people who buy a lot of nice horses and put a lot of effort into the horses, but we won't want to hurt these people who start in their late adulthood to ride. Hey, that's totally okay. But they also find out that it is super, super bad for the horse. Never mind about the saddle. Of course, the saddle gets twisted, but it's also bad for the horse. So safety, number one. Number two is bad for the horse. Number three, it's bad for the saddle. But here's the second fun fact. It is super bad for your riding. Number five is straightness. Straightness is I got to get my horse to move straight. Even though the horse, like humans, don't have the organ absolutely symmetric placed in the body. Okay, we talked about in our past conversations, we talked about how the horse has the appendix on the right, like humans. Digestive tract is on the right. We talked about vaulting, the gymnastic on horses, competition, how they're going to the left, racetrack goes to the left, for the horse, like humans, have right-handed and left-handed. So we've been through that. But we also know that if I don't train as a trainer, my horse to go straight, I'm going to wear down one or the other ligaments or joint. So if the horse is always landing crooked in the jumping or trotting or walk, okay, they overextend one of the joints. They have four. What else we learned? We learned through our instructors or through history that the majority of the weight is on the forehand.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to bring the back up, haunches underneath. So I lighten the load on the forehand. Again, why? Well, if your joints and ligaments and bones are broken, snap, goodbye, you can't ride your horse anymore. So why do I need to ride straight? For the horse to be able to elevate his back, its haunches underneath and displace my weight and his weight on all legs most even. Makes so much sense so far? So here's the fun fact number two. What do you think people who mount from the ground will do? They get stronger and stronger with the left leg and the right stronger with the left leg. You don't believe me? Make a mount from the right. You will laugh your bum off. The coordination.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do it.
Right? And because your muscle coordination, right, you have to learn that. And then when you got it a couple of times, you will actually say next time when you mount for 2 weeks in a row from the right, you says, oh man, my thigh hurts. Why? Because you're having now training the underdeveloped right side of your leg. So conclusion, people who mount from the ground all the time uses more muscle, you're training that leg more. So you're also riding more with your left leg. It's not just my theory. It's you got to think about it. How come so many horses have a little harder time with the right lead canter versus the left lead canter? Okay, if I ride upper level dressage, you will see always a fault coming from the left canter to the right in the tempies or even in your threes. Right? So it's a really weird thinking. And if I, as an instructor, rider, trainer, beginner, learn that my most important aid is my seat. What does that mean? That means how I give the aids to the horse is how the horse communicates with me. But if I'm strong on my left leg, so we can go on and it gets a little boring. But I think you get the idea, right?
Yeah, it makes the saddle crooked, the horse crooked, and the person crooked on like 3 counts. All in the same direction then, presumably.
So it goes back to this misinformation. And that's why I like to tell the stories, not because I like talking. It's generally known that guys don't like to talk as much as ladies do. But that's the only way how people maybe resonate. Unless they have issues like you with your knee, they don't.
It's kind of like that light bulb moment where you can say something like the same thing a bunch of times, but sometimes it takes like a certain version of it before someone like actually goes like, aha, I understand.
Isn't that the truth? You know, and I think it's not just in riding, it's anything you do.
Yeah. And like when people are emotional about not wanting to like be wrong or admit that they're hurting their horse, they have like more of an incentive to try to ignore it. So some like that, the stories are good because it gives people way more context and then they don't have to feel like as bad or like they're like less smart than other riders or they don't care as much and stuff. Because it's like everyone makes these same types of mistakes in one way or another at some point in their riding career because you can't really not there's so much stuff you have to learn over the course of like decades that it's like crazy.
Mhm.
Everyone makes mistakes.
I like to go to the fact that we as humans, as predators, we're always ready to fight, right? And always to defend. And simple fact, if you have a frown on, you need more muscles to put a frown on than to smile. But if you put a frown on and you're ready to fight, you feel shitty inside.
Yeah.
Everything curls up. If you smile, you open up, your shoulders go back, stand tall, the endorphins rush to your head. And I find this is the same thing when people shut down, ready for a fight. It doesn't work, it doesn't work, it doesn't hurt the horse. If they're open, listen, experience, and see the big teddy eyes on the horse, the ears are soft, and the horse is whinny when you come and stands quiet when you mount. And you guys have from the first get-go, that's the same endorphin rush as if you smile. So why
Yeah.
not smile, let the information come in. If it makes sense to you, try it. What you got to lose?
Yeah, and if your horse likes you better, it's a win-win because then they're like easy to catch. They don't try to bite you. Like whenever, because I'll like, especially when you're getting new horses in a lot, I'll get horses in who are like miserable because clearly they've had like a reason to have a bad association with something. And it's so frustrating because you take for granted all the time, like all the things that are like easy with horses that are happy and like fulfilled in their jobs. And then when you get the ones that haven't learned that it's going to be that way yet, you're just like, wow, all these things are so much harder and like less fun because then you feel like bad about like how they're feeling. And it's hard to like, it takes repetition before the horse will go like, oh, like it doesn't hurt anymore. Or like, oh, this is fine now. So I don't know, like I wish more people would realize how much easier it makes like everything else that you're doing, like even outside of riding, like all of the basic handling, but then especially the riding too, because you just have less problems then.
Yeah, I'd
And
like to share
yeah.
my screen with you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see if I can set this up here.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, so as you guys know, we make saddles in for all disciplines, and when we ride, you know, once we're on the horse, that's great. But what if I mount here these long
Oh,
bones,
wow.
right? And when I put my weight on it and they start touching, that is not the first. The first is this nerve here. That's the cranial nerve 11. Okay, and then the horse tightens, and you can see it. Horses, if you have horses that have that lane, they get this only if they're overworked in fly season or when doing mounting, when you jump on the saddle. Okay, so when you put your weight in your stirrup, all the weight is in that stirrup bar. So the stirrup bar is right here. The steering and that metal plate gets dig into the front. And you know where it digs in? It digs on this baby, BL13. That's a lung meridian point. The lung meridian point. Let's talk about that for just a brief seconds. So if I say to you, if the horse gets poked there because either the saddle doesn't fit right in the tree width or tree angle and it pushes into the cartilage, you mount and it jams into that spot what is right on the cusp of the shoulder blade. Okay, so what we know that the horse get artificial heart rate. Artificial heart rate goes up, stress level goes up. What comes for stress? Colic, ulcers. And the last the customer wants to hear is you saying, I told you so. This is why he had ulcers or colic. Of course, you can't pinpoint it there. But if veterinarians tell me that if the saddle digs in here or you mount from the ground and that stirrup bar which is attached to the metal, and the metal digs into here, and that digs into here just on that side you mount, or it digs into the shoulders when the horse moves and the tree doesn't fit right. So when the veterinarian tells me this, I as a saddle maker, you as a trainer, or the audience who listens to us as the riders will say, oh, what do the vets know? What, they have no clue. You know, that's cognitive dissonance. You know, they don't, they put the frown on, they're upset, they don't want to grow. But if you listen, open up, and try it. And like you said, the horse is happier, doesn't show you the ears, because in the end of the day, let's face it, we all love him. We are so concerned about the horse. Isn't that so?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure. Because, yeah, all the more knowledge that becomes mainstream, the better I see it getting, because it kind of lets people find stuff on their own terms a little bit more, and then they receive it so much better.
Yeah.
And
so people know it in their heart, and if they don't trust the intuition, trust your partner. This is not normal. Okay? If they go like this, they say, something is bugging him, and then they try maybe not what you are able to do or the jockeys are able to do, but maybe they try it from the mounting block. And all of a sudden, the whole demeanor of the horse change.
Yeah.
If you don't, the saddle will twist, and then you see how that dust pattern sits diagonal on the horse's back?
Yeah.
That's from a twisted saddle.
Wow.
You don't need that. And if I buy a saddle for $200, or I buy a saddle for $5,000, if the saddle twists and sits like this, falling to one side on the spine, I didn't know that, but I didn't know. So now I'm listening to the experts, professors from all around the world. People say, hey, look at the top of the horse. Look at what type of riding they do and what the saddle does. So if these people who don't sell saddles or another lesson, they just want to follow. They want to follow what they're sworn. And they swore, as a vet, they swear, or their oath is, do no harm. And I think, of course, you don't want to do harm. But it goes back, you don't know what you don't know.
Oh, exactly. And that's why, education is power. Knowledge is power.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it was a short session.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to share this quick picture with you. And I, as always, love talking to you for hours, days.
Yeah.
But the day only for short, and I got to get going for my next meeting.
Yeah, thank you again for doing the short one after I locked myself out of the account. I won't do that next time, so we'll get the full length of time that we booked for the next live.
You know what I loved about this time? Everything, I look at the positive side. Okay, if something happens, how can we make this positive? I think what we did is we didn't bombard the people with too much information.
Yeah.
Our time. We talked today about one topic, which is the mounting from the ground.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know how your audience find this or you find this. We're not trying to pack so much in, and just leave it open, and maybe also for question and answers.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely for next time. That'd be fantastic. Because I always get such good reviews from people who've read it and they say they learned and they love these ones, and that it's always very helpful.
That is so nice to hear, because we both put our best foot forward. At least we try.
Yes. No, it's awesome. Thank you again for doing this, and I always appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Bye.